Before we get started into the emergency management operations solution, I really want to kind of set the stage and tell you the story of how we got there. So part of those lessons learned that really led to those components that I was going to show is through Esri's disaster response program. So you've heard a little bit about that this morning already and some of the experience and the events that we've supported and the team has supported broadly. So if Esri's mission is really to support our users, we extend that mission through the disaster response program to really support our users in times of need. So what does that really mean, and what are some of the ways that we can help folks? Some of the key ways that we can help folks through our disaster response program is getting them additional software. What's the software that they need to complete their mission? Helping to provide workflow advice or implementation for some of the key tasks that are out there. Helping them to connect them to the data that's available in the response community. There's always communities of data that develop both at a state, regional, and international level, and we'll try and get folks tied into that the best we can. And then finally, provide technical support, 24/7, 365 technical support for folks to get them over key issues. The main two sites to remember and pieces of information are esri.com/disaster. That's where you can actually log a request with that blue button at the top right there. Or you can get at us through disaster_help@esri.com. Now, this has been something that we've been doing for the past 25 years in some form or fashion. So 25 years of supporting our users in different ways. In fact, this is our kind of 25th anniversary. The Northridge earthquake was one of the first events that we supported, that Esri supported. And in fact, some of the staff that went on site there are still with us and still with the company today. So I realize this is a bit of an eye chart here that shows a bunch of different events, obviously recent events over the past couple of years with Hurricane Michael and Harvey and Irma and the like. Even to the spring flooding and severe weather that we've had. So through all of this experience, we've learned a lot. We've seen how the technology's evolved. We've seen how the user community's evolved and seen many great presentations here this weekend already, as well as how GIS can really come in and support these missions. Through these lessons learned, we've also seen a common set of challenges. What are the main struggles that we see time and time again? And you've heard about some of this already, right? Paper processes that don't scale, right? Someone puts in a pile of paper maps that were taken in the field, puts them on the GIS person's desk and says, make me a map, right? That's common nightmares of GIS staff. Or, more recently, challenges in sharing information with the public. Instead of having a public information officer take a picture of their finger and tweeting it out for an evacuation route, right? We know that there's better ways to get out this information in a more scalable fashion. And oftentimes, GIS staff can be the bottleneck in operations. How can we deputize more GIS staff and have really operations folks be editors and participants in these systems and get information in a focused way to help keep the information up to date about an incident. So these are common challenges that we see time and time again. So to help enable and really kind of empower the community, not only during Gray Sky Days when we're helping folks from a disaster response program perspective, but more importantly in Blue Sky Days, what do we want folks to be prepared with? And all of that experience is really boiled down to three key things. One, helping them to maintain situation awareness. Two, being able to help them conduct damage assessments more quickly and effectively in the field. And then finally, helping to manage the flow of public information. So that's where all of these things have really kind of boiled down to, all these lessons learned. So in working with the groups inside Esri, including our solutions team, we developed a set of templates in this offering now to help you really achieve these missions really quickly. So first, from a situation awareness perspective, having an incident status dashboard for display in your command center, being able to feed that with editing information that's being edited by operations staff to keep this picture up to date. And then finally, being able to brief in real time with the same information. So these suite of templates, these suite of tools really can help us from a situational awareness perspective. Damage assessment, the ability to quickly understand the potential impact of an event is critically important. We've heard much about that already today. Being able to take our mobile applications, whether they're connected to the internet or not, and feed information to a centralized location. So a set of tools to help from that perspective. And then finally, managing the flow of public information. Getting that information out in a scalable way. Kind of moving away from having that ArcGIS server underneath someone's desk that may not be able to support that much of a load, and getting that into the cloud, getting that out into to ArcGIS Online to support those CNN type of loads, to get information out into the hands of the constituents and the users in the community to be able to quickly understand that information. So this solution actually works all together. All the components work together and can flow from one part to the other. So it's not just standalone applications. Data that may be edited from operations staff, if the appropriate rules are met, can actually flow out from a public information perspective and be shared with the public more broadly. So now that we've kind of introduced these particular applications, I want to come over here and actually show these to you and give you a quick demonstration so you can get a sense of what these tools and baseline capabilities can provide. And when you're looking at this, this, like I said, these are really kind of baseline capabilities from an emergency management perspective, but these tools and apps and concepts may apply to anyone that's got any sort of operational component inside their organization. So first off here, we're going to look at the incident status dashboard. So in the command center, staff need to be able to come in and at a quick glance get a sense of what's going on, not only from a mapping perspective, but looking at key metrics to go along with the situation. Now this can be used both in blue and gray sky days to get a sense of what's going on. So here we're looking at a flooding scenario that we'll use through the course of our demonstrations here. So this is in Kingwood, Texas, in this particular scenario. So really quickly we can get a sense of how many open shelters there are, current occupancy and the like, the number of incidents. But not only can we take a look at things at a local scale, but we can get a regional perspective of what's going on as well. And with a couple of clicks, get information on stream gauges and the like, and other live feeds that Dan's going to be talking about here in just a minute. So the capabilities here are really important to be able to have all this information kind of flow in and at a quick glance be able to get a sense of what's going on so better decisions can be made. Now we can compare this with the operations response viewer. And this is really the editing type of tool for the system. So with a couple of quick clicks here, we can come in here and have operations staff do a couple of quick edits to information to help keep this information up to date as the event unfolds. So we can, in this case, if we just simply want to open up a shelter here and mark up some of that operational information on the map, I can do that with just a couple of quick clicks. And I don't have to be a GIS expert, and I don't have to be the GIS staff to help keep this information up to date. And these updates now are immediately available in other parts of the system. You can see that back in the incident status dashboard, this information has updated near instantaneously and have a better sense of what's going on. Now, to better understand the potential impact, we can use the situation awareness viewer here. And so in this case, I'm going to click on the part of the rivers that I'm interested in here, Ben's Branch. I'm going to set the location here for our analysis because some of the key things that I need to know are who's impacted and what's impacted as a part of this event, because this will help us better understand the types and amount of resources that we'll need to be able to respond to this particular situation. So with just a couple of quick clicks here, I can see the amount of population that's potentially impacted in the nearby area, how many schools are potentially impacted, and hospitals and the like. So this is really powerful information to be able to quickly characterize the potential impact of an event. And this can be configured with some of the data, the information, the critical infrastructure that you care about to allow you to quickly understand how things are evolving through the course of an event. Now, additionally, this information can be saved off and shared in a couple of different ways. I can create a report of this information if I need to create a PDF document or email a colleague. This is pulled together really quickly with not only the textual information here, but a map will drop in here in just a second to share this information. I can also archive this off in different ways, so I can go back and look at this later on from an after-action perspective and see how we did through different aspects of the event. Moving on, I want to look at things from a damage assessment perspective. So here, what we're looking at is another configuration of the operations dashboard to show the work that's been conducted in the field already. We can see the different types of damage to residential buildings in this potentially impacted area. We can see the key metrics in terms of not only count, but the damage estimate here to go along with this. So we can now also then pair this with collecting information from the field using Survey 123. So now if we look here at things from a mobile device perspective, what do things look like in terms of being able to quickly fill out information from the field to report in on that damage assessment information here. So we can type in our location. Obviously I'm not in Texas right now. Well, zoom over to that extent so we can get a better sense of where we want to place this information. And even if this house is across the street and not accessible, I can simply mark the location here on the map, fill out any of the additional information that's required. The other key thing is to mark the type of damage that it is. Oops. And the other thing that's important to do here is we have the ability to take photos and associate information from the field right here from the device. And once I'm done, I can submit that information. Now, in this case, obviously, I'm connected to the internet, but if those changes are made, or if we don't have connectivity to the internet, all of that information can then get stored on the device and forwarded on when we have connectivity. So now if we come back over here to the viewer, we can see that those updates here are made in real time, and we're getting that information flowing back in. So damage assessment is another key capability here. Getting information out to the public, right? So being able to share information in a scalable way to help the public understand the situation. For example, are they in an evacuation zone that's associated with this event? Getting information out to them is really important to help them stay safe and understand some of the resources that are out there and available to help them. So with the public information map here, we're able to do that in a really kind of easy to use way. Public information officers can easily embed this app in Facebook pages or their agency's website, tweet out the links to the like, and this will hold up to a viral load given that it's back-ended by the cloud. Finally, kind of bringing it all together from a briefing perspective. Story maps, as you've seen, have been a really popular way to pull together a lot of different information, be able to brief teams here in real time, not having to spend a lot of time in PowerPoint to kind of pull together the information around a particular incident. So briefings, again, using story maps are a really powerful way to bring all this information together and keep teams updated in real time. So I realized that was a very kind of quick tour of some of the applications here, but we just wanted to give you a sense, in this morning's session on some of the tools that we have available and what the capabilities are of the emergency management, operations offering. Before I close here and turn it over to Dan, I wanted to highlight, just a couple of kind of trends that we're seeing. In a general sense, from a disaster response program perspective, we're seeing a lot less of the need for workflow assistance. People seem to be getting the patterns that we've talked about here, and these seem to be resonating with folks. They just may not always be prepared as they perhaps would like. Additionally, we've recently seen more challenges in staff augmentation to support longer duration events, right? If you're going hot and heavy in the Emergency Operations Center for 3 weeks, how are you going to help with some of those burnout issues and kind of transition to other staff? So that continues to be a trend. And finally, what is important to us is we continue to see the value of these patterns validated by each disaster and crisis. We definitely see examples from the user community, examples from you all that let us know that we're on the right track here and that these capabilities are important and these help make a difference in the communities and jurisdictions with which you serve. And I wanted to share just a couple of quick examples. Arizona's Doug already called out Arizona already today. The work that Eric and Dave and team are awesome and really help leading the way from a situation awareness perspective. I also wanted to acknowledge the state of Oklahoma staff too. I think that Zach and Chase are in the room here. Again, other great examples of sharing information from a situation awareness perspective that can really help keep folks up to date. And both of these apps are public and great examples that we can learn from. Damage assessment. So this was during the floods, a couple of months ago in Nebraska. And we see a user here from Douglas County, Nebraska, that is able to take one of the components of the emergency management offering and stand that up really quickly to help support their damage assessment needs and immediately able to get great value out of these tools. And the final example here is from the city of Reading. From the car fire last summer. And in this case, they were using the public information map to share information with the public on the evacuation zones, where the shelters were, where the large animal evacuation shelters were, and the like. But one of the things that I really like about this example is a tweet that the GIS analyst here from the city of Carr put out, on his way to work one day. Oftentimes, during disasters, we see people put up signs that say, "Thank you, firefighters. Thank you, first responders." But take a look at that, that in the center there. It says, "Thank you, Fire Map Updater," right? What better way to get acknowledgement from the public, right? That your information, what you're putting out and sharing with the public, matters and it is making a difference. So I thought that was a really nice example that we observed from the user community that we wanted to share. Well, certainly a lot more to talk about and learn. This week there'll be several sessions, going on later this week, and in fact we'll have a emergency management breakout here after lunch to get into more detail. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to my colleague Dan here to give us an update on some of the great work that he and his team are doing on live feeds.
All right, thanks, Jeff. You've heard some talk of Living Atlas in some of the presentations that you've seen from Jeff and John and some others over the last couple of days. And if you're not familiar with Living Atlas of the World, this is your kind of one-stop shop. This is a curated and authoritative archive of data, real-time data that's been contributed from all over the world into the ArcGIS platform. And within that content holding, that rich content holding, we have a lot of resources that are really useful to emergency operations, situational awareness, especially for weather and disaster-related events. And I have some really great news, which was alluded to. This past week, we released a new set of versions of some of our most popular content in Living Atlas. We made this migration from map services to hosted feature services, and that might sound like wonky GIS talk to most of you, but it's what's really going to allow some of the enhanced capabilities that I'm going to show you in a couple minutes. But first, here's just a kind of an overview of some of the new data, the new services that are available in this hosted feature service environment. Everything from some of the really core National Weather Service layers of weather watches and warnings and storm reports, some of our national forecast models, and then we're also bringing things in from NASA and USGS and other authoritative contributors of data. I'll mention that right now we don't have them. Unfortunately, the recent earthquakes didn't make this first release, but the real-time active earthquakes layer that we have as a current map service offering, we'll be migrating that one over in the next couple weeks. Same thing with the USA Fire activity. USA Fire polygons and points for the nation. But here's the really important stuff. So we have these older versions and we have these newer versions, but why should you take the time and migrate your maps and your layers and your apps over from the older versions to these newer versions? There's a couple key points here. One, if you've been using them, these were subscription-based. You had to have an ArcGIS logon to access these different layers. We've gotten rid of that. That means that these layers, thank you. These layers are now free and open data. Anybody can use them. You could be in the ArcGIS platform. You could be outside the platform. It means if you're building an app, you don't have to worry about going in and embedding credentials so everybody can access your maps and apps outside of the organization. So these are free and open now. Because they're in a hosted feature service environment, they're going to scale automatically. We use Microsoft Azure for our cloud services, so they're automatically going to scale. If there's a landfalling hurricane, we don't have to call that person over in IT and be like, can you stand up a couple more instances? They're automatically going to scale, so there'll be no lag in performance time, especially during massive events like we've seen over the last couple of years. Because these are hosted feature services, they automatically update in your display. There's no caching of the data. So if there's a new event that happens, a new tornado that it triggers in the storm report, you don't have to play with your map to override the cache on it. It's automatically going to display. If there's a new watcher warning, it's going to display. New model feed comes in. It's good stuff. There's been some talk of using Arcade, either in pop-ups or in the symbology I heard earlier. The cool thing with hosted feature services is you can not just use Arcade in them, but you can use Arcade across different layers. So if I had one layer that might be a live feed layer and you have one of your layers, you can access the attribute information from one using what we call feature sets and create symbology and pop-ups in another layer from that. And so there's going to be some really great talks throughout the rest of the UC on how you could potentially do that. I encourage you to look at that one. There's going to be more integration across the platform, lots of dashboard talk. Hosted feature services, they have a better ability to do some of those filters and actions that you see in dashboards. And there's better support across the platform. But then this last bullet is something pretty critical. Eventually, we will deprecate the old versions, so we don't have to worry about maintaining two things. If anybody's in IT or data management, you know that's always a problem. We're going to keep these older versions around for the next year or so, but we encourage you to start moving forward and swapping out your services. And we're available to help you with that if you have any issues or if you need any additional support. But we encourage you to do that to take advantage of some of these key points. And with that, I'm going to pop over to a little demo real quick. This is also something we're about to release. Well, it's kind of available now, but we'll make mention of it after UC. Leveraging some of these capabilities, we built a new hurricane app. And so you'll see some capabilities here that are new. The code for this is also available in our GitHub. So if you want to customize this, maybe not do it for hurricanes, do it for another area, bring in some additional information, you'll be able to do that. But this is what we call hurricane aware. And I'm using demo data right now because there's no landfalling US hurricane, so I have some older Irma data here. But basically what you'll be able to do is define an area of interest or select an active storm. You'll get the current National Hurricane Center forecast for that storm. And this isn't anything new, right? You can see, through time what the Hurricane Center is forecasting. But the great thing is for US-only areas, you can click into your area and get census block information and weather data here. So if we're in Hialeah, we'll see when the wind gusts are going to start to get really strong, when the precipitation is going to start to impact that area. And this is separate from the hurricane forecast. These are using our forecast models from the National Weather Service. So we'll also see some demographic information here, who speaks English, who doesn't, who has cell phones, who doesn't. What are the age ranges of the populations in that area? So if, for Irma, or some of the other storms that have come through, there was some the models were readjusting. Is it going to hit the West Coast? Is it going to hit the East Coast? If you're in an EOC and you're seeing it's going to hit the East Coast, well, here's this communication barrier. If it's going to go West Coast and up into Sarasota, Tampa area, you have to communicate that information very differently. So we're really excited about this. Again, you'll be able to customize this kind of application and put it out for your own uses. Thank you very much.